few months back, I read the first couple of chapters of Gokurakugai, and I thought it was pretty good, so I talked about it in a video. People were enjoying it, I was enjoying it, everything was cool. But then, out of nowhere, I get flooded with messages of people absolutely hating on this manga. I see videos with titles like "The Manga That Ruined Its Potential" and "Gokurakugai Ruined Its Premise." I find a bunch of comments about how it used to be good and how it completely fell off. And I'm just sitting here confused, like, are we even reading the same manga? So I do some digging, and that's when I discovered the missing piece of the puzzle. A few years ago, there was a Gokurakugai one-shot, which is basically a single chapter that authors use to show the idea they have for a manga and find out if it has any kind of potential. And apparently, this one-shot wasn't just good. It absolutely blew everyone's mind. So they decided to make a manga out of it, but here's the problem. When it first came out, something went terribly wrong. The hype train crashed extremely hard. The people who praised the one-shot were brutal. But as we all know, sometimes the manga community can be right, but at other times, they have a tendency to exaggerate a lot. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure out if Gokurakugai genuinely fell off, or if I've actually been missing out on an amazing manga. And to understand what happened, I knew I had to start with the one-shot, because that's the thing that made everyone fall in love with this series. Okay, so let me quickly read this. So, the story starts with a character called Tao absolutely bamboozling another character called Alma for stealing from her. She's telling him he shouldn't be doing this, especially in a rough town where people will mess you up if you try to take away the little they have. Then we hear Alma's stomach making a lot of noise because this guy is starving. Feeling bad for him, Tao decides to take him under her wing. Fast forward a few years and they're still in the same rough area, but now they're working together as troubleshooters, which is just a fancy way of saying they'll box anyone or take any dirty job as long as you've got cash to pay them. In this world, there are half-human, half-animal people called beastmen, and they live alongside regular humans. It's a little bit like BoJack Horseman, but where humans treat animal people like absolute garbage, some going as far as capturing them and selling them, so yeah, not great. We suddenly get to a scene where Alma catches this girl who tried to steal his money, but instead of hurting her, he shows her the same compassion Tao showed him back in the day, without the beating up part. Alma brings the girl to their office and she tells them what happened. And that's when we find out that there's this medicine that turns beastmen into humans for a limited time, which is cool, but it costs a lot. Turns out the mermaid girl's family started taking this medicine a while back until they got tricked by this dude who seemed nice, but ended up selling them. And she's the only one who managed to miraculously escape. She doesn't have any money, but Tao empathizes with her and remembers all the pain she went through when she was a kid herself. So she decides to help. After that, they find the sisters, they annihilate this entire gang, the mermaid family is reunited. I cry because the whole thing is, you know, freaking beautiful. You know, all the usual stuff. But seriously, the thing that immediately stands out to me with this one shot is how the tone and the setting are actually really mature. The story doesn't shy away from these really dark themes. Everyone's trying to survive in a world that's brutal and unforgiving. But there are a couple of moments where you see genuine glimpses of humanity shine through, and that's when it truly hits you like a truck. The ending is genuinely perfect because it shows you how messed up they truly are. I mean, they did something good, sure, but they did it in a pretty intense way. The characters aren't your classic good guys, but you still can't help but like them. I mean, it's honestly kind of insane how much character development you get for them in just a few pages. And the cherry on top is just how freaking delicious the art looks. I mean, look at this. So listen, after reading this, I completely understand why people were hyped. This one shot has everything. Most importantly, it feels like a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of stuff we've been getting. I mean, the whole thing goes super hard. But after reading this, I felt very concerned because if the one shot was that good, where did Gokurakugai go wrong? So I started chapter 1 because I just had to find out. Okay, so in the first chapter, Tao and Alma are still working as troubleshooters, but instead of the mermaid girl looking for her sisters, we're introduced to this random kid who's looking for his missing beastman friend. Right? Up to here, everything is pretty much similar to the one shot. Alma brings him to Tao, but this time the kid doesn't trust them and just gets out of there. But as he's walking, he finds his friend being attacked by a demon, which I'm only now realizing is very different from the one shot, but let's keep going. So these demons are called Manga, which is definitely an interesting choice. It's about to attack this kid when Alma suddenly shows up to save him. He starts hitting the demon like nobody's business, left, right, good night. He's like, this would even take 3 minutes. So the kid is like, what the heck are you guys? And that's when Tao drops the shocking truth. Their real occupation is actually demon hunters, which is in fact completely different from the one shot. But anyway, Alma opens his shirt and pulls a stake out of his chest to unleash his powers. He transforms into a half demon, half human. Let me say that again. He transforms into a half demon, half human. He defeats the demon and ta-da! The end. Listen, when I originally read Gokurakugai, I thought it was pretty cool because it reminded me of Devil May Cry, and I freaking love Devil May Cry. But now that I'm reading it after the one shot, it's not really hitting the same. Like, it makes total sense they were just trying to recreate stuff that was doing well at the time, like Chainsaw Man. I mean, they're honestly not even trying to hide the fact that Alma is just Denji. Like, this dude is literally pulling out a stake out of his chest. Are you kidding me? And I'm not saying it's all bad, like the art is great and these kinds of battle manga can be awesome when done right. But it's just such a dramatic shift from what made the one shot. So yeah, it just feels kind of forced and I feel like someone just throat punched me. I genuinely understand why people were angry because this is basically a completely different manga with a Gokurakugai skin. Yes, but even though the first chapter was already rough, there were still over 20 chapters to go. So was chapter 1 just some accident, a temporary fumble from the genius who brought us the one shot? Or was this the beginning of a downfall that would take us further and further away from what could have been one of the greatest freaking manga of this generation? Sorry about that. I needed to know, so I continued reading. So I'm on chapter 2 and it starts with this scene where Tao and Alma come across this dude who's visiting his grandfather's grave. I mean, this guy's clearly going through something, but instead of just walking away, they actually take the time to listen to a story. There's this really beautiful moment where he's sharing memories about his grandpa and you can see Tao and Alma just chilling there and being present for him. This scene doesn't have anything flashy because it's just people connecting, and honestly it's kind of perfect that way. But then bam, demons randomly attack them. So suddenly we're thrown into this battle sequence. Tao and Alma beat the demons and that's it. I got to the next chapter and things got interesting. So now Tao and Alma decide to investigate because they think someone might be controlling these demons, okay? They go to this place and what happens? They get ambushed by a horde of demons, they beat them up, and that's it. Investigation over. I continued for a few chapters until I got to this moment. Okay, so they go on another investigation to find some missing shopkeepers in this deserted shopping area, right? And once again, demons show up, they attack, they fight the demons, and this kind of feels like the same transformation sequence, the same basic fighting choreography, the same ending. I mean, it's almost like I'm watching the same scene in a slightly different location each time. Throughout these first few chapters, we also get a few of these scenes where the characters are just hanging out. We'll have a scene where they just discovered something really sad, for example. And 30 seconds later, Alma is making some kind of joke about being hungry. And then there's the Beastman situation, which genuinely makes me very upset. In the one shot, the half animal people were extremely important because they really struggled. I mean, they were literally sold to other people as pets, right? But here we still get the Beastman, but the entire thing is reduced to some people don't really like them. They mention it once in a while, but it's not really a big deal anymore. The one shot was dark and violent right from the start. The world felt dangerous. The characters were constantly fighting just to survive, and there was an obvious heavy atmosphere about the whole thing. It had this perfect vibe that made it feel unique. The story focused on actual human struggles and emotional connections that genuinely hit me, and the main characters were basically just highly skilled individuals without any supernatural powers. But the serialization feels more like your basic battle manga. Everything feels lighter, the tone is way more watered down compared to the one shot, and some of the darker themes are still technically present, but they feel so freaking unsatisfying because we never get to explore them as deeply as we did in a 50-page long one shot. It sometimes genuinely feels like they're trying to copy Chainsaw Man, which to me is kind of silly because series like Jujutsu Kaisen or Chainsaw Man heavily rely on these darker themes to make everything way more interesting. But then I cannot even tell you how unprepared I was for what they did to the GOAT of this manga, Tao. Okay, listen, I'm not even gonna lie. There are a lot of changes from Tao's one-shot version, but I think that this one tiny moment from chapter 1 is probably the best way to show you exactly what I mean. So remember when the mermaid girl was looking for help? In the one shot, she explains how her family was tricked, okay? And as she's telling the story, Tao sees her own past reflected while listening, and the only thing she replies is fine. That tiny change in her facial expression tells us everything. You can see years of similar experiences. There's reluctance because she knows this job will be dangerous and she won't make any money. There's empathy because she recognizes the girl's pain. There's anger at the people who caused this situation, and there's determination to do something about it, even if it's probably not a good idea. All of that complexity, all of that emotional depth, all of that character development in one freaking panel. That's showing instead of telling, babe. Now, let's look at the equivalent situation in the serialization. This kid needs help, comes to Tao and Alma, the kid leaves, Tao decides to help him, he asks, why? She answers, why not? Bam! In the one-shot, Tao was an absolute menace. This woman would straight up do the most disturbing stuff just to make some money and not bat an eye about it. But at the same time, she had this hidden soft spot that you'd only catch glimpses of in rare moments. Even though she was clearly a boss, it didn't prevent her from having a variety of different emotions. But in the serialization, they turned her into much more of a regular mentor figure that you've seen in a lot of other shonen manga. She feels like much more of a straightforward, good guy kind of character as opposed to someone with a balance of good and bad. And there are a lot of moments where it almost feels like she's disconnected from the situation and just staring into the void. And don't get me wrong, I think she's still a great character, like easily one of the best parts of this manga, but also kind of a downgrade from her one-shot counterpart. But trust me, I was about to find out the absolute worst part, what they did to my boy Alma. Ugh. Okay, so I've read a few chapters and let me just break down Alma's entire personality so far. Constantly hungry, talks about food, he cracks jokes at inappropriate times, and he's amazing at fighting. Oh, and he's an idiot. Congratulations, I just described literally 90% of shonen protagonists that have existed since the beginning of time. In the one-shot, Alma is basically the street-smart dude who's not afraid of getting into a fight ever. He knows exactly how to survive in this rough area he lives in, but he completely fails in any kind of normal social situation. And even though Tao is clearly his boss, Alma isn't just some sidekick. He's got his own skills and strengths he brings to the table. And that contrast made him a cool character. But in the manga, they've transformed him into a very generic, goofy main character. And sure, there are still tiny glimpses of his one-shot personality here and there, but it doesn't hit the same because every time he starts to get interesting, they always find a way to balance it out with him acting like a complete buffoon. The most jarring part is that he became the main character. This animal gets most of the screen time instead of sharing it with Tao, which is absolutely terrible because the worst parts of his character are constantly shoved in your face. It doesn't feel good reading a story led by Alma because he doesn't have nearly as much depth as Tao or even similar characters like Yuji from Jujutsu Kaisen, for example. The changes they gave him are way more dramatic than Tao's and not in a good way. Let's just call it what it is. The manga took this dark, mature, unique story and used a generic shonen filter on it. And I'm not trying to blame anyone for this because I kind of get it. Most of the successful manga out there are weekly publications. So if you're dropping one chapter per month like Gokurakugai does, you want it to be good. But the logic of trying to fix something that was already phenomenal doesn't work. The math is not math. And binging the entire thing is something that I can do because the chapters are out now. But can you imagine reading the one shot and then waiting a full month for a new chapter, getting whatever this is, and then waiting months and months just to know if it's going to get better? I would lose my mind. And ironically, the rare moments where Gokurakugai actually shines the most is when it reconnects with the things that used to nail in the one-shot. Like these moments of humanity where the main characters try to help other people in need. It's these occasional moments of brilliance that remind you what this manga could have been if they just went with the original vision. I couldn't believe how they massacred my boy. So far, Gokurakugai had lost everything that made it cool in the first place. I continued reading even though I was basically dragging myself through the manga at this point, but then I got to this scene. Okay, so I'm at this part where Alma is spending some time with a girl. Like, they go to restaurants, they hang out, you know, nothing crazy. But then we discover she's in huge trouble because she's also a half demon, half human. Alma desperately tries to convince her that being part demon doesn't make her some kind of monster and that she could actually use these powers to save people instead of hating herself for something she can't control. But then the main villain shows up and forces Alma to transform. He loses control and ends up straight up annihilating this girl. The rough part is that this is actually what she wanted because she couldn't control her powers and that was causing a lot of pain for those around her. Alma is absolutely destroyed by this because all he wanted was to save her the same way Tao saved him back in the day, and he completely failed. He has this brutal realization that he's basically useless without Tao around him. But instead of just feeling bad about it, he decides to actually do something and get stronger. So when he starts training, he's actually fighting against his own fear the whole time. He's terrified of losing control and hurting innocent people once he transforms, just like he did with that girl. But then he has this moment of clarity where he realizes his fear is actually holding his entire team back. They're out there risking their lives while he's too scared to go all out. So he finally finds the courage to overcome what he was scared of. This character development is what I wanted. It hits hard because the manga finally goes back to what made the one-shot so freaking good. For once, I actually cared about Alma because I saw an interesting side of him, not just the goofy parts. Listen, I still think he's an annoying character, but the author is clearly trying to improve him and bring him closer to the personality of the one-shot. And I think that's freaking cool. So Alma was doing better. But what about Tao? Okay, so I'm a bit further in the story, and I got to the scene where Tao meets someone from her past, and her whole personality completely changes. It's almost like you're seeing an entirely different character, and you can just tell that she isn't anywhere near as calm and collected as she was in the previous chapters. Her body is literally shaking. She seems angry, confused, scared, all at the same time. And then you get this flashback of her life, which gives you a good glimpse into the person she used to be and what kind of absolutely terrible stuff she experienced to become the cold person she is today. And we're talking the worst stuff imaginable. Genuinely. So when you see her almost crying, it really takes you by surprise because this is the same character who's been poker faced for most of the story. The part that really frustrated me in the beginning is that Tao literally became a background character. But now, even though she's pretty much the same, we're slowly getting these revelations about who she really is. And those rare moments when that ice cold exterior cracks just a little bit are awesome. They hit so much harder precisely because 99% of the time she's giving us absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm genuinely starting to think that they might have done this on purpose. She's this woman who's clearly been through the absolute worst in her past, but every single panel she appears in just elevates the entire vibe of the manga. Her relationship with Alma is nowhere near where it used to be in the one shot, but I'm still praying that one day they manage to bring it back, honestly. Alright, but I was not about to give this manga a pass just because the main characters eventually got some decent development. We've all seen this happen before. A series pours all its development into one or two people while putting everyone else in the background. So what about all the supporting characters? Okay, so I just started the saga that's mostly focused on a character called Nei. The whole thing takes us to her childhood home. What you need to know about her is that during this entire manga, she's pretty much this arrogant and like totally in control of every situation kind of genius character, basically. But here, she suddenly starts panicking. She's terrified. There's this panel where she's about to open a door and you can just tell how hesitant she is and how much of a challenge this is to her. And when she finally manages to do it, this dude who slayed her parents when she was a kid is just standing there. And that's when we see all the rage come out. This arc finally gives us a real deep dive into this character. I mean, in just a few pages, we see more of her than we got in all the previous chapters combined. Gokurakugai is at its absolute peak when the author stops trying to be like other battle manga and just does his own thing. His own thing being writing peak characters. I'm gonna be honest, at first I was not really a fan of the whole family thing because it felt like half of them were just some lame tropes, like the annoying genius or the funny dog guy. He was pretty good actually. But then something pretty cool started happening. These characters got some development and the interactions between them stopped feeling like forced comedy bits and started feeling like people who've been through real stuff together. Suddenly the way they talk to each other, the jokes, the quirks, all this stuff starts making sense and becomes enjoyable and fun. Some of these characters have made such a massive leap from their original versions. Took some time, not gonna lie, but it happened. Although I am still waiting for some of them to get their moment in the spotlight. For example, that dog guy is basically just there to crack jokes whenever the scene gets too serious, which is kind of fire, but I want more. And based on how they've been developing the others, I'm actually hopeful a lot of this is going to happen in due time. I mean, I used to find this girl insufferable, so anything could happen. Even with all these improvements, there was still this disappointment I couldn't shake. A completely different tone from the one-shot to the serialization felt like such a betrayal of what made the original thing special. I needed to know if the manga would ever find its way back to that peak, because without that, no matter how good it got in other areas, it would always feel like an okay shonen rather than the real thing. Pretty early in the story, we're introduced to this mysterious big bad villain who's apparently been pulling strings from the shadows this entire time. His name is Gojo. His name is Yomi. But this guy isn't just some random demon lord. No. he's got this whole dysfunctional family of villains under him. Think of it like the Phantom Troop of Hunter x Hunter, or like the Espada from Bleach, just much less charismatic. No, I'm just kidding. The manga starts introducing them one by one, and each one of them has their own distinct personality, fighting style, and most importantly, actual motivations for what they're doing. Some of them way weirder than others, but still, they have their reasons. And all of them under this one dude. And suddenly, Tao and Alma have an objective beyond just destroy whatever demons show up. They're trying to find out who this Yomi dude is, what his ultimate goal might be, how to stop him, why every single villain looks like a runway model, you know, that kind of stuff. And this creates a sense of progression. There's an actual story here. The first chapters of this manga felt completely disconnected to me. We'd fight some random demon in one chapter, then suddenly we're dealing with some completely unrelated problem next week. Later on, everything started connecting. This shift from random side quests to an actual story completely changes the experience. Now, I'm not gonna pretend that they completely abandoned the demons can be good, it's your actions that matter theme that's been done a lot. That's still there, and it's still a massive downgrade from the complex social commentary of the one-shot. But I'll say the execution has improved so dramatically that I'm actually starting to care. And when the author combines this with those emotional moments and darker themes, this manga suddenly becomes truly excellent. And very surprisingly, I even managed to find something that the author did even better than in the one-shot. Look at the facial expression on this dude's face. Look at the details in this freaking background. Look at the choreography of this action scene. Oh my god! If there's one aspect of Gokurakugai that never once disappointed, it was the absolutely mind-blowing artwork. While the story was what it was, Yuto Sano was over here creating visual masterpieces like it was nothing. Except for this one fight where something must have gone completely wrong, but we don't talk about that. The monthly release schedule really shines compared to weekly manga when it comes to this stuff. I could honestly show you so many different panels because everything from the character designs to the environments to the facial expressions is just masterfully executed. Even during those early chapters where I was genuinely considering dropping the manga, I kept coming back because I just wanted to see what visual feast Gokurakugai would serve me. In my opinion, Gokurakugai is the proof that a manga can make a comeback. Sometimes you just have to let it cook. So did it actually ruin its potential? Well, I think it definitely lost something special, yeah. And maybe this is just my copium talking, but I feel like there's a steady shift towards what made the one-shot good in the first place. It feels like Gokurakugai is, weirdly enough, starting to become the manga it should have been in the first place. So did it make a comeback? Heck yeah, it did. And you know what? I'll say right now, I think I was actually missing out on a gem. So as an apology to Yuto Sano, the author, for being such a hater in the beginning, just wait a sec. Yeah. I got the first volume. Thank you, Yuto Sano. Thank you very much. But you know what the weirdest part is? I recently discovered another manga that people, again, absolutely hated. And again, my question is it actually that bad?